het zondag gaan share oor dit, hoor. Net die twee mikkelbord laat het. Julle raak. Die ou met die gesels. Hy is nou vars deur dit, hy het 'n bediening vir die Here begin en laat hy daaroor praat. Zondag, welkom my vriend.
Thank you.
Mag die Here jou bless en dit wat jy sê. Baie dankie dat jy vandag hier so is, hoor. Ek seën jou, gaan voort. Kom ons luister na jou. Ja, jongens, die weet nie wat jy sê.
Thank you, Harry. Before I start, I would like you all to acknowledge that I'm merely a vessel and an instrument that's being used by Jesus Christ here. The focus is all on Him, not me. Okay, I'm just an example of what His love did for me, delivered me from, healed me from, restored me from, saved me and saved me from myself. Okay, so please just keep that in mind. Second of all, Haru, thank you so much for inviting me to your men's camp. It's really a privilege. And when I first met Haru, it was a very God encounter moment for me. He was talking about his wife and he got teary, sorry brother, and I just saw his heart and I said, this guy is for Jesus. I just saw his spirit, I saw his heart, and we obviously connected a bit on that day as well. And thank you, it's really a privilege to be here to serve the Lord at your men's camp, and what you're doing in ministry, bless you, brother. Okay, I'm going to begin. When I was 9, my parents got divorced, which completely crashed my world. Yeah, it was a very hard, sore thing for me. And obviously, I was living in Australia then, we came here. I was in standard 3 then, started bunking school. I started drinking. I used to actually take half bottle of brandy and coke in my juice bottle to school and drink that. So I'd go to primary school a bit wasted. Just to go back a bit, my father was an alcoholic for 20 years, which I knew, so I should have never have done that. But anyway, I didn't care. I was in so much pain. My first sexual experience was in standard 3 too. A friend of mine that I was friends with, she had an older brother and he used to watch pornography and she wanted to have sex with me, so we did. And when I had this, it was very weird. I was 9, I was young, but somehow it managed to satisfy the brokenness, the pain, and just fill those voids. So did the alcohol and so did the sex. And I thought, great, I'm getting sorted now. Standard 3, I think I bumped probably about 2 months of that year that actually kept me back. Yeah, then from a very early age I was very spiritual and I was looking for something, and I was very attracted to the darkness for some reason. And I got interested in Satanism. Into Standard 4, Standard 5, I started pursuing Satanism. And served Satan for 2 years or 3 years after that. By the time I got to high school, I was a full-blown Satanist. My mom sent a pastor to me to come and pray, and I actually binded him. I actually said a curse on him. Yeah, so that Standard 6 year that I party every weekend was a big party, and one particular night, I got very aggressive. I was a very angry child, very aggressive. I lost it, and actually my mom got 2 pastors up the road from us to come and pray for me. And she just didn't know what to do anymore. She was scared. My friends were scared of me that night. And the one pastor held me here, the other one held me here. My 2 friends held me here. And my stepfather had my stomach, and I started speaking out of a dynamic voice when they were praying for me. I started foaming at the mouth. And I kid you not, I stood up and threw all 5 of them off me. My stepfather eventually took a run in, dived me down. They started praying, and I blanked out. That was it, I blanked out. I don't remember anything after that. I woke up the next morning and I felt different spiritually somehow. I felt clean. Didn't stop the drinking, it didn't stop the sex, it didn't stop the rebellion, it continued. And then I was still searching for something spiritual, so I took a liking and a big interest in vampirism, which is vampires. And I pursued that religion for 10 years. I had seen a vampire spirit in the spiritual. The most beautiful woman I ever seen, and not that I'm giving a demon glory here, but they are very, very beautiful and seductive. And any man would be attracted to them, so that's how deceiving they are. But I wanted that. And yeah, she was around me for 2 weeks. I was actually sexually seduced by vampire spirits. I was aroused by them. It felt like fur going all over my body. But that's what I wanted. Anyway, I left school. I went to Rudapur Technicon first, which was a technical school. Got there, I was there for 2 months, and yeah, that was it. One morning we had a break for 2 hours, and I finished 5-litre casket of wine with a friend of mine, and walked back into class, and I couldn't shut up. And my lecturer said, you know, why do you smell like alcohol? So I said, no, it's deodorant. He said, no. Anyway, he sent me to the principal's office. My dad arrived. Yeah, I don't know what was really going on there, and my dad took me home. And the next morning I woke up for college, and Mom said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to college. She said, you're being expelled for drinking. I thought, okay, great, so I've got more time on my hands. So, cool, let's get into some more mischief. I was never happy in this world. I didn't want to be in this world. I hated this world. I hated it. I was very suicidal from a very young age, and my mission was to live fast and die young. That was my mission, and that's what I was going to do. Anyway, eventually I got sent to reformatory in Heidelberg, called Emmersdal. I was there for 2 years, and yeah, I was coming right, actually. They made me a prefect and so on, and I was putting my weight. Still drinking in between that, but not as much. Came out, I went to Rudapur College, and I wanted to study graphic design because I got a gift to draw. And actually this morning I met somebody. Where are you? There you are. Willem, I did my first year, but he came the following year. He was at the same college that I studied at. He knew my brother. How amazing was that, this morning's fellowship? And I actually said to Hara this morning that the Lord has asked me to make this a very personal testimony. I have never spoken like this before, and all the time I've shared in the past year. So it's, yeah, it's going to be amazing. Anyway, I was doing graphics, drinking, having sex. I met a girl, we went out for 6 months. She was unfaithful. And then I took it back because I was trying to feed my sex addiction. That's what I wanted. But one thing I want to say is that I had respect for women. I know it's going to sound hard to believe, but I've got a great respect for women the way I was brought up. But to feed an addiction, you will do anything. Trust me. It's very selfish. And I was selfish. I just wanted the relationship for the sex. So I would manipulate, say all the right things, basically deceive them completely, and just use them time and time and time again. And when a relationship failed, it was like, no, my addiction now for sex, what am I going to do? 3 days later, I'm in another one. I was very codependent, could never be alone, I had to have that. Anyway, I eventually got involved. I'm also a musician, and I was into the rock scene. Very heavy stuff, death metal and black metal and the works. And I was a vocalist for a band and performed. It was a very dynamic band. I wrote the lyrics myself, and we were doing quite well. And then obviously I broke up with this girl. I met another girl. My home life was not good at all. I was drinking a lot. Obviously still practicing the vampirism very deeply. One thing I never did though was consume human blood. There was just something that I couldn't, and now that I'm a believer, I understand the covenant of blood, sacrifice and consumption. So, strange, and things were going well. Then I had a breakdown, and what I did was, because I was in a band, I manipulated a limousine company to drive me to Cape Town, and I got it right too. And I was carted down to Cape Town in a limousine, and I drank the entire way. And it was fun, and my mom was, everybody was trying to prevent me, and I was aggressive with everybody, I wouldn't listen, I was on my own mission. And my intention to go to Cape Town wasn't for the band, it was to take my life, to commit suicide. I had enough, and I was going to do it out of Joburg. Anyway, we got to Cape Town, I got to my aunt's place. I just rocked up at my aunt's place in Stellenbosch, and what are you doing here? And I took a bottle of wine, and I just started drinking. Anyway, the limousine guys went, and the next day we went sightseeing, and the Saturday came, and I asked them to drop me off in the middle of Cape Town. I went to a club called Stage, which is an alternative club, or was, and I got in there afternoon, no money really, and I met this guy drinking a bottle of whiskey, and he said, "You want to drink with me?" I said, "Sure, if you're offering free liquor, I'm going to drink it," which I did. A bit later, I ended up at the Purple Turtle, and strange enough, a friend of mine here that lived here was the bouncer there. And he said, "Dude, drinks on the house, dude. Oh, this can't get any better. My plan is working out so well." And it was. And I got into Purple Turtle, and this woman approached me, very, very beautiful, as all women are beautiful when you're drunk, so anything will do. But she was really nice. And we got chatting, and she said, "You want some crack and cocaine?" I said, "Sure." She took me back to Stage to a VIP room there, which I didn't even know they had. And she put one light on, and there's this big bag of cocaine, I kid you not, like a brick. And we started smoking, and I had so much. And then the drug lord walked in, and then I got up, and I knocked the cocaine off the table, and it spilled everywhere, like thousands and thousands of rands. And this guy wanted to kill me. That's what drug, I mean, I've just like messed up his business with this package. And she basically saved my life, and talked him out of it. And then I got out of Stage, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the limousine guys are waiting for me. And I'm like, "No, we're going back to Joburg now." I'm like, "Okay." And that was it. I blanked. I had so much alcohol and so much drugs that I was out. And something that Haru asked me to share, which I've never done in the year I've been sharing all over, is to talk about my flatlining that happened during both my suicide attempts. My heart stopped, I literally was dead. During the time that I left Cape Town and I came to at 4 o'clock that afternoon, and I'll explain why. I'll let you know that I've got actual proof that I flatlined. Anyway, so I woke up, the guys were very quiet in the limousine, and I turned around and there was a police escort behind us. The lights were going on, and I'm like, okay. As soon as I got into the limousine company, I was arrested straight away for fraud and sent to Parkview police station. And they wouldn't even let me make a phone call because this guy was so angry with me. They just shoved me, and my father and my mother searched for 2 days until they found me. Anyway, the third day I was going to Hillbrow Courts. They were going to prosecute me for fraud. And it was horrible. I remember getting there, and it's like this whole line of people, criminals, and I'm just standing there, and I'm weak, and I actually detoxed in the cell from the drugs. It was like I was craving crack, and it was horrible. And anyway, 10 minutes later they called me in, and 10 minutes later the case was thrown out of court because I hadn't signed any documentations for this deal. Had I would have spent 3 years in prison for fraud. So anyway, my parents took me home, I had a bath, we went to my doctor that night, and he examined me, and he said to both my parents, he has no idea how I'm alive. It's impossible. It's impossible. And I thought, damn, you know, I'm still alive. 3 weeks later, I was at home, and I started drinking again. I was very drunk that day. And my stepfather was not a very good man. I never accepted him as a father figure. So I had physical abuse and mental abuse and so forth. A lot of fighting physically with him and so forth. And he came home and he told me to sweep the driveway. And he walked, and I took the broom and I threw it at him. And I was turning around to walk out the property, and he grabbed me, took my head and slammed it 3 times into the concrete as hard as he could. And I remember seeing 3 blue flashes. And I gained consciousness very quickly, and I got up and I said, "Is that the best you've got?" And as that happened, the cops drove past, the cops came in, my mom arrived, trauma, trauma, trauma. Then my mom called the pastor, and it was about 8 o'clock that night, and they said, "Come, we're taking you to what I thought was a clinic." I thought, great, I can go and chill for a week, come out, and try suicide again, and this time be successful with it. That wasn't the case. We got into this hospital, it was very dark, and I got into the admissions, and I said, "Where am I?" And there's a psychic, or a mental asylum at Krugersdorp called Sterkfontein Hospital. They said, "You're in Sterkfontein Hospital." I said, "What?" I tried to make a run for it. They sedated me. They told my mom and everybody to go. I remember walking to the ward, they switched on the lights, and there was all these people, and I'm like drunk, and I'm sedated, and I'm whatever. Anyway, for that first month I was sedated. The sedation I had, I couldn't even move properly. I was just sleeping. Eventually they stopped the sedation. I was given a psychologist, and they completely examined my head from the trauma, from the physical abuse. It was all fine. They checked my chemicals, and I was diagnosed with schizophrenia due to alcohol and drug abuse, which caused a chemical imbalance. I thought, no freaking ways, this is impossible. This can't be happening. And anyway, I saw the psychologist, and she was really great, and I just opened up to her, and I said, you know, she asked me about my spirituality, she asked me about everything. And let me tell you, in most cases, if you tell your psychiatrist or a psychologist that you see things in the spiritual, they will sedate you and put you in a nut house for 3 months. And that's what happened. But for some reason, she believed me. And she actually called in an expert who deals in the spiritual. And he said to her, he's not lying. And then she said to me, don't talk about it anymore here, else I'll keep you here forever. I said, fine, that's our deal. It was strange. I was in the A side, and sometimes at night she used to come and visit. When I was sleeping, my friend said, she would sit by my bed while I was sleeping and just watching over me. I was like, okay, I never knew that. I remember one night we were having coffee and everything and smoking, and this bat flew in through the top window and bit me on my leg, and then flew out. And my friend watched this, and he's like, what the flip? And I'm looking at it. Obviously I wasn't like perturbed, I was quite thrilled that happened. You know, the vampires have come to visit me in the nut house too. So I've got support, you know. And yeah, one thing that also happened, one night I was crying, I actually cried blood. Because I wiped and I was like, I went to the mirror and I cried blood. And this freaked my friend out completely. He was like, oh, I don't freaking know what's going on with you. Anyway, so eventually I was moved to a open ward. Of course I met women. I tried to have sex with a couple of them, and unfortunately they watch you like hawks in Sterkfontein. But I remember getting moved to an open ward. I was there for 15 minutes, and I got into an argument with my mom over the phone. I was quite aggressive. Within 15 minutes I was back in a lock-up ward, straight away. So I thought, yeah, I'm blaming my mom, I hate my mom, now I've got to sit here again. And let me tell you, it wasn't pleasant being in that place, let me tell you now. Anyway, eventually I got moved back to a open ward. The psychologist I had, they released because she took a romantic interest in me, and they asked her to leave. So I was very disappointed, upset, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I spent some time in the open ward, and then my mom phoned me and said, you're going to be discharged in 4 days. You're coming home. I'm like, yes. So I came home, I went to stay in a flat with my brother. On all this medication, I was getting an injection once every 2 weeks. And yeah, for about 7 months I isolated myself in society. I had huge anger problems. So I decided to train in martial arts just to release it, and I started training specifically on Muay Thai kickboxing. Further on, later in life, I was asked to fight in Thailand, the UK, America, and Australia. I was an instructor. I had promoters on my back, and I didn't do it for that reason. This was a very personal thing for me. I just wanted to release it. I got approached to do some bodyguarding, which I did. A bit of freelance bodyguarding for a while. But that did help with my anger. But then there was discipline with it as well. I couldn't abuse it. So that was, I couldn't just go around punching people. But I did a lot of, I was interviewed in the Northcliffe Melville Times for my martial arts, and I had a lot of women coming to me for self-defense training. So I did private training for them and so forth. So I haven't trained anybody in probably 10 years. I walked away from it. So, but I've just been asked to train somebody else now, so I'm going to do it because I'm at a different place now. So, but so anyway, out in society, isolated for 7 months, very depressed, suicidal, and then I met an old friend, and they told me not to drink on my medication. And we went out one night, and I got hammered, like literally drunk out of my skull. And so that was going on. I met more friends, and then we went through to Melville, and I met a girl there who I slept with the very first night, and we actually got involved after that. We were together for 5 years, and I was very much into the whole gothic thing and the black metal thing and all of that whole scene. I've always been. And let me tell you something, they're very wonderful people. I do oppose a lot of churches because they are very judged people. So I do stick up for them. They've been judged for their tattoos and so forth. Trust me, I don't care if you're a pastor, if you're judging them, I will have a dispute with you. Because I was that person as well at one stage. Anyway, my ex-fiancée, she was unfaithful twice, and that broke me completely. I actually had met the guys that she slept with, and she thought it was one big frickin' joke. I had to move out. I went to go and stay with the bikers. I've been a biker since I was a very, very young boy. My dad rode for the Hells Angels for 5 years, and that was embedded into me from a very early age. I went to stay with the bikers. I wanted to take both these guys out. We were going to ambush them and just put on masks and literally take baseball bats and knock them out. Then the father threatened to phone the police and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so obviously very broken, very angry, I decided to go on a suicide binge. I was just going to drink myself to death. I managed to start a nightclub during that time called The Crypt. It was out in Randburg about 13 years ago. Became very successful. I had all the metal guys there, I had all the gothics, I had all the black metal, death metal, punks. It was like club hell. That's what I wanted. I created it just for that purpose. I had witches in there, I had warlocks in there, I had Satanists and the vampire community and the werewolf community and so forth. I loved it. Unfortunately, because of my addiction to kill myself with alcohol, I stuffed that up too and drank all my money out that I couldn't maintain the nightclub anymore. But we moved to another venue, and then it was just different, and then it just faded. I had no money. Eventually, my flatmate told me to get out because I can't pay him, and I landed up on the streets for 3 months. I was homeless for 3 months. I lived in West Park Cemetery, which is near Melville, and I wanted to be in the cemetery. I wanted to be with the dead because I wanted to be dead. And so you might be asking the question, but how did you survive? Well, I survived on alcohol, first of all. I had no money, but I was a regular at Cat's Pajamas in Melville, and all the locals knew me, and they would buy me alcohol. It's amazing how Satan feeds you, doesn't it? And there were days when I was up for 48 hours. There were 3 days or 4 days that I didn't eat. I just didn't care because I was on a suicide binge. Anyway, I was invited to a private 21st, and there was a case of whiskey, and I took 3 bottles to myself, and I locked myself in the bathroom. And I said, right, now this has to work. And I kid you not, I drank all 3 bottles. Eventually I was bringing up stomach lining and blood. I'd locked myself in the bathroom. My friends eventually got the door down. And I recall my friend saying, he's not just drunk, we've got to get him to hospital. I said, no, leave me here, I want to die. Anyway, they rushed me through to Helen Joseph. As we passed West Park Cemetery, I said, please, just drop me off there, just let me be. And they just kept on telling me to shut up. I got to casualty, they wheeled me in and I blanked. That was it. 7 hours later, I woke up with a drip here and a drip here, and feeling as sober as a priest. My throat was very sore, my stomach was very sore, and this nursing sister that saw me admitted to how my feeling was. I feel good, it's just my stomach and my throat. And she said, listen here, had it been an hour later, you would have been dead. You would have been dead because of alcohol poisoning. They were battling to save my life. They were battling to save. My heart basically gave in again. And I flatlined once more. I woke up, I felt spiritually different. And then that Sunday, I walked all the way down to Randburg, and I was with the bikers. I had a tag on. And also that night that I was at the 21st, I got very aggressive that I put my hands through coals. And I had 3rd-degree burns on my hands. I'm not even lying to you. They're not there anymore. But that took some time to heal, but there was a very spiritual thing with those burns, but I'm not going to get into that right now. 3 weeks later, I voluntarily admitted myself into Tara Hospital. I completely broken. That day that I was released from hospital after the suicide attempt was Easter Sunday. And I decided that Sunday to stop drinking and to deal with my brokenness, my pain, and everything. And I voluntarily admitted myself into Tara Hospital. And got there weighing 50. I looked like death. Very broken, very fragile, very emotional. And I was there for 6 months. And then I started attending the AA meetings and the NA meetings. And even there, I was still practicing the vampirism. And yeah, I met a lot of folk. I fed my sex addiction there, slept with 3 women, used them, abused them. And then after 6 months, they felt I wasn't ready to come back into society. And I went to a halfway house called Mountain Lodge out of Mahalisburg. And I spent almost 8-9 months there. And I manipulated my mother to come out. I just couldn't bear it anymore there. It had been a long time out of society and I wanted out. I went to stay with my mom, things were going well. I hadn't drank anything since then. Got into more relationships to feed the sex addiction. But my next door neighbor was involved in witchcraft. And he started showing me books. And I thought, well, you know, I like the whole vampire thing, but I thought maybe I can just mix them together then, which I did. So he mentored me in white witchcraft. Eventually, I was initiated as a high priest white witch, which is very high ranked. Now you may be thinking white witch, but it's not harmless, it's because it's white. It's actually very deadly. It's just as evil. I mean, I used to do things like calling up fairies. I used to leave honey and milk for them to come. I did all these things. I did spells, I did everything. And one Friday, I actually moved in with him eventually. I was initiated. He had bought me my witchcraft symbol, everything. And just the one Friday I broke down. I did a lot of crystal healing. And let me just say, there's nothing wrong with crystals. But they can be programmed. But I'm not going to go into that right now. But I did a lot of that. I had a lot of power as a witch. And spiritually. I saw into the spiritual most of the time. And so forth. But anyway, the one Friday I just broke down, and for the first time I felt this evil. Now, I had my family praying for me that are believers, that are Christians, and they've been praying and praying and praying. And I just broke down. I broke down completely spiritually, mentally, physically, everything. And crying the whole day, sitting in a hut in the middle of the bush, just sitting there. Eventually my neighbors came, they fetched me, I spent the night there, they took me to my dad the next time. And my dad said, right, you're going back to Tara. Second time around, I volunteered to go back to Tara. Broken as anything. Got there, I was there for 9 weeks. And you know what? I don't give glory to Satan because he's a coward. But when I got there, there was a witch that was there, a female. And I got involved with her. So we had a relationship, we slept together. And yeah, eventually it was just my time to be discharged. I was sent to another half-a house that's in Johannesburg called in Bertram's, which is horrible. It was horrible. I was there for 8-9 months, got very depressed and very suicidal. Eventually my mom took me back. And yeah, came home but extremely suicidal. I was contemplating suicide for the 3rd time, and my mom's friend had a revolver, and I kept on asking, when are we going to your friend to go and visit, and manipulating my mother and whatever. But while I was in the halfway house, my cousin started taking me to church, and I used to just sit there listening, you know, go and smoke, and always smoking and looking at my phone. And I went with her for about a year, and when I came to live with my mom again, she was busy with her Bible college at Rhema, and I was invited to her 3rd year Bible college graduation. And that night, the message just moved me. I heard about this Jesus, like really clearly that night, and what he was about, that this person, the Son of God, sacrificed himself for me, no matter what I did, to forgive me for what I had done, and to give me a brand new life, and to love me unconditionally, because I had always been judged, to just accept me as I was, and just to love me with his majestic love. I thought, I need this more than anything, and I gave my life to Jesus that night. It was a very emotional thing for me. I was obviously very suicidal still, and they took me to some counselor, and I said I'm suicidal, and he just looked at me. And he prayed for me. I didn't feel any different. I got baptized. I said I'm suicidal. They dumped me 3 times. I didn't feel any different. So I thought, okay, right, I don't understand this. I've been told that you can deliver me, you can heal me. And I remember lying in bed, which I spent most of my time, and I cried out to Jesus, and I said, if you are real, you will take the thoughts of depression and suicide from me now, because if you don't, I'm going to take my life and do it properly this time. And I kid you not, in 1 hour, I got out of bed and I was delivered. I had no more depression, I had no more suicide thoughts, it was gone. Glory to him, not me. It's all about him, remember that. Keep your focus. And yeah, I was invited to a youth church, started going there, and I just come out the wall. My hair was down to here, and I was quite judged. And I thought, Jesus, I don't understand this, because I thought your brothers and sisters are supposed to love me for who I am. And I eventually confided in one guy, and I said to him, I shared a bit of my history, and he said, Sean, what you need to go through is a process of deliverance and healing. And he also said to me, he said the most amazing thing to me, because I was actually going to walk away from Christianity altogether because of the judgment, and go back straight into witchcraft again. And basically take my revenge on believers completely because of my experience. I was going to wipe them out, one for one. And he said to me, Sean, it's not about them, it's about you and Jesus Christ, your relationship with him. And that changed my whole mindset. And then I started focusing on Jesus and forming my relationship with Jesus. Throughout that time, I was getting judged and people were doing this, and I just focused on him. It was very difficult for me, but I did it. And anyway, still sober and clean, believe it or not, but still active in sex addiction. And eventually I went through the process of deliverance and healing, which took 2 years. That was very hectic for me. I experienced a lot of spiritual attack, demonic attack. I used to wake up in my bed screaming and I couldn't move. It was hectic, but both Mabel and Charlotte from the Zebra Owls ministry walked that journey with me for 2 years, and I never gave up. They said, God has got a huge purpose for you. You've got to fight now. And I did. And Jesus got me through it. I'm going to get emotional because I'm not ashamed of that, because I love him. I love him. And eventually I went for a career assessment to find out, I went through my church to find out, Lord, what do you want me to do? What is your will for me now? I was a graphic designer before this, but I want your will for my life. What do you want me to do? I went for a career assessment. I got a high percentage for psychology and counseling. I didn't want to be a psychologist, I wanted to be a counselor. I went and studied, and as I was finishing my course, they said your strongest point in counseling is going to be an addiction, because you've overcome.
Amen.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. And after I went and did my internship, got qualified, not only in addiction counseling, but I was used as a spiritual counselor there. And this, what I'm about to say now, is a glory to Jesus, so clap hands for him, not for me. But through my testimony, 13 people were saved in my office and gave their lives to Jesus Christ in my office.
Amen.
And I really enjoyed my internship. They asked me to give a daily devotional in the chapel there, which I did. That was from the addicts and alcoholics themselves that requested that. Chatted with my director, she said, fine, do it before breakfast. I had 5 minutes. 5 minutes is all I needed. Because in 5 minutes you can speak a lot about Jesus. And yeah, then they wanted to keep me on. They couldn't give me a permanent post, came out, went into private practice with a psychologist. Before we focused on addiction and a whole lot of other things, couples therapy and individual therapy and blah, blah, blah. But my main focus was addiction. So I pulled out of private practice with him. I said, I'm going to focus on addiction. And yeah, for a time I couldn't find work. I went to Cape Town, I went to a rehab there, and I was misled and empty promises. And I'm going to say it because I do speak my mind and I'm not ashamed to do it. It was a Christian guy that offered me the job and gave me all these empty promises and broke them. So I was crushed spiritually. I came back to Joburg very broken spiritually. And yeah, I was very hurt. I had support around me, still looking for work, and applying, and people saying they're going to get back to me. Eventually I cried out to God. I said, what do you want from me? I don't understand this anymore. I don't understand. Anyway, eventually last year, September, or just before September, I was invited to a workshop on the Occult, and they wanted me to share my testimony. And after that, a lot of people approached me and said, you need to be in schools, you need to be in churches, you need to be wherever your testimony needs to be heard. They even suggested that I write my book. And strange, just in the beginning of that last year, people are already asking me to write a book. At that time I wasn't ready, but I've just written over 100 pages at the moment. So obviously the book has got a great amount of detail. Anyway, so I started sharing in schools from there, from September. Christmas Day, I didn't want to be with my family. I wanted to be with Jesus because I wanted to prepare myself for 2013 because I felt he was going to use me in a very mighty way this year, which he has. And I spent the day with him and cried with him and loved him. It was a beautiful experience. Very beautiful. And yeah, I came into 2013 and my goodness, I've been in full-time ministry exactly a year now, and I've been sharing my testimony in schools and churches, rehabilitation centers, workshops, which are not only a qualified addiction counselor, but I'm also a motivational speaker now. I've had a journalist do an interview on me for my occult involvement in the Move magazine, which is an African magazine. I was on Radio Metro FM 4 months ago. They interviewed me on radio. And I just can't believe how the Lord has blessed me with the ministry He's asked me to manage. Because it's all about Him. And like Haru said this morning, you guys are writing things that you wanted answers to. And I'll be very honest with you, Haru, I could come up with nothing except gratitude. That was the only thing. Because I'm a non-profit organization, which the Lord told me to be. I don't charge a fee for my counseling services or when I speak. If they give me a donation, it's great. If they don't, it doesn't matter, because I'm glorifying Jesus and I will glorify Him. I don't care what the situation is. Why does somebody have to pay me to share the love of Jesus? Please, it doesn't work that way. And I have been getting very blessed in this ministry financially, and not only financially, with all kinds of things. Just to share with you, these boots that I'm wearing here are Harley Davidson boots. And my friend Ian, a friend of mine in Harus, said, you would look good with Harley boots. Ian said to me, come to my house, I've got a surprise for you. He took me to a shop and said, right, the boys have all clubbed in. Haru was one of them. They all contributed financially to get me these boots. The Lord works in mysterious ways. So I don't take anything for granted. I don't have much, but you know what? I have a lot because I've got Jesus Christ. And that's all I focus on. And I can go through everything. And let me tell you, the past 2 weeks, before this camp, I was viciously attacked in the spiritual. That on Wednesday, and I shared very briefly with Haru the other night when I spoke to him, I had a nervous breakdown on Wednesday. Complete nervous breakdown. I was crying up until Friday yesterday. I was actually going to admit myself into Tara Hospital next week, Tuesday, for 9 weeks. And my mom didn't want me to go back to Tara, and she said she can't go through that again. And I eventually fell asleep. I got a call from the ministry that helped me with my deliverance and healing, and they said, no, you're not going to Tara. We will give you spiritual counseling for your healing now, because it's spiritual. But up until that 2 months, I've had a lot of personal problems. I've been very focused on the ministry, and I've pushed that aside. They have offered to do this for me now, next week, Friday already. It's amazing how God works. I had an immense attack. I wasn't even sure if I was coming here yesterday. I was so emotional. And I was crying out to God the whole time. I wasn't giving Satan the gratification to push me down for his purpose for this weekend, for you men here, for horror asking me in the spirit to be here for a reason, because God has a plan here this week, and for all of you.
Amen.
All of you. And Jesus Christ is greater than, I'm not going to say because I'll probably swear at him, but he's a coward, he is a father of all lies, and all deception, and all deceit. And I don't care what I go through, because God called me to do this, and I will do whatever I need to do and go through what I need to go through to serve him, because it's all about him, all of it. And I'm here because of him. He gave me the spiritual strength to be here this weekend. I'm on fire in the spirit. My body is very, very tired, extremely tired. But you know what? It's amazing how God gives you a supernatural strength, which I think I will understand, and some of you believers here, that I can't even explain. He just keeps you going and then takes care of you afterwards. You've got a purpose, he will take care of you once you've completed what he's asked you to do. And he's done it once again for me. This was the most vicious attack I've ever had in this year I've been in ministry. And I was out there praying this morning by myself, and the Lord said to make it very personal. And I said to Horror, it's going to be personal. He wanted me just to really share with you men. You know what? There's nothing wrong with men crying if you're hurt and broken. Nothing. There's no shame in that. It's good to cry. It's healthy. Trust me, I know. I've been crying for 3 days straight. It's good to cry. You know what? You don't always have to be the strong ones, eh? We can also be vulnerable. And it's good to be vulnerable because you need to heal. Yes, we are providers for our wives and girlfriends and families, but we also need love. Amen. Men need love. And women think men just, no offense ladies if you're here, but men need just as much affirmation as women do. We need to be appreciated as men, as godly men. That we go through a lot, we are burdened with so much. But also just something I wanted to share with you. I made a vow to Jesus and God 4 years ago that I wouldn't have sex until I was married. I've been 4 years celibate now. I haven't had sex in 4 years. Thank you, Jesus. I've had a lot of temptation, plenty of it. I don't want nothing to do with it. Horror knows how I feel about meeting my wife. We spoke about that. Don't be in haste. Totally agree with my brother. I won't. I will not go through 10 relationships. I will wait until the Lord says, that's your wife. And she tells my wife, that's your husband. because He has provided everything for me up until now. Why wouldn't He do that for me? That's because I trust Him, and I've submitted and surrendered my life to Him completely. I do His will. I spend a lot of time with Jesus. A lot of time. Someone said to me yesterday, "You're very spiritual." I said, "Yes, I am." Sometimes I can zone out with Jesus. I can't even explain it. And then come down again. But what I've been through, and just to name the ministry, what was I going to name it, you know? So I've called it From Darkness to Light Ministries. And I've used the scripture, and I'll read it to you. This is the scripture that I use for my ministry, or for God's ministry that I'm managing. Acts 26, 18. To open their eyes, and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, so that they may receive forgiveness of sins, and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me, which means Jesus. Amen. Another favorite one of my scriptures is Matthew 6, verse 33. First seek His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. And horror reminded me of that scripture that weekend that I met Him. And it was like Jesus is saying to me again, remember that scripture again. Because I haven't broken my promise for you. I know you want a wife, but now trust me. Yes. Trust me with this. At the right time, it's going to happen. And God's timing is never late and is never wrong. It is always perfect. We've got to be patient. And I've learned a lot of patience in being a believer. There's another scripture that I wanted to share, which I do use. It's Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on His law he meditates day and night.
Just repeat the scripture.
The scripture that I'm reading. It's Psalm 1, 1 to 2. Now in this ministry I deal a lot with occultic stuff, but my main focus is addiction. And I have a great love for addicts and alcoholics because I was one. And I was just sharing with Willem this morning a book that was written called The Heart of an Addict. All addicts are beautiful. I would love to meet Charlie Sheen. I would have a great chat with that guy because I was very similar to him. I have a vision and I will share it. Where is he? There he is. Your musician. Last night he said, there's someone here that wants to buy property in Hartbeespoort Dam. That person's me. Because I want to build a rehab here. We all gave that vision 3 years ago. And I shared it with Haru as well last night. And that was just confirmation for me again. It's going to be an international rehab. I am going to have, what I want to really work with is the celebrities in Hollywood. That was part of the vision. The Lindsay Lohans and all of them. I will have them out here. Mark my very words, what I say this day. They will be here. I guarantee you. Yeah, just to end off, that the love that I experience from Jesus is very overwhelming because I feel His presence every day. And when I spend time with Him, I don't think about anything else. I can't even describe His love right now, and I'm in a battle with this. But for someone to love me for what I've done, I was serving Satan for most of my life, and He still loved me and forgave me. So, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share this morning, and I hope that the Holy Spirit open up your hearts to what I had to say, what the Lord had to speak to any of you here today, because I am merely used as a vessel for His light to shine through me and to be a witness for how powerful His love can change you from anything. So thank you.
eers waar Sean vandaan kom. Dit is my so awesome dat ek vir haar die briefies deurwerk. Elkeen van ons het 'n ander ondervinding met die Here. Het gekom my oor kop bietjies. Is dit alright? Okay. En Sean, dit is waar, jy weet, baie mense dink omdat ons nou, jy weet, ons kom almal uit 'n slegte plek in die lewe uit. Ek is dankbaar die Here het my bewaar, want ek het net 5 keer in my lewe dag gewerk. Nog nooit gesnyf of gespuit nie. Maar ek het die ondervinding af van en ou het slegte vrouens. Ek praat van slegte vrouens, eintlik was ek die slegte man waar die goeie vrouens bygekom. Want dit is wat gebeur het. Jy weet, ou se lewe val uit mekaar uit en tog kom die Here. En hy gebruik soos hierdie stage, hierdie gebou is solid vir ons om vanaf te bedien. So is ons verlede. Uit jou verlede uit word die stage van jou bediening. En jy staan op jou verlede en dit wat vergewe is, het 'n solid bediening vir jou geraak. And go forth, brother, and do whatever God wants you to do. No matter what your past. You know, a lot of people criticize me because of my past. And I thank the Lord for it. Because I didn't know, geen theologiese kursusse gaan doen nie, my broer. Ek het 'n skrif gevat in Johannes waar die Here sê, julle het die salwing van die Heilige Gees en julle weet alles. En julle het nie nodig dat iemand julle hoef te leer, want ek sal julle leer. Ek het net in God se teenwoordigheid gaan sit en wie het in God se teenwoordigheid gaan sit. Elke dag as ek daar kom en ek ervaar daai teenwoordigheid en die liefde van die Here vir my. Ten spyte van my lewe wat vandag nog baie keer in verrigtings hardloop waar ek dit nie wil hê nie. En ten spyte van die sonde in ou se lewe en jou strewe na 'n heiligmaking en na wegbreking van hierdie goed af. Dit is nog altyd daai verlede en baie mense kritiseer my daaroor. Weet jy wat vir my lekker? Is dat ek daai verlede kan vat. Dat ek daai verlede kan vat. Sit in daai stoel vir ons eenkant, Boeta, dan breek jy die volgende en dan sit jy hom op vir ons eenkant. Jy sit op jou toe al eenkant, dan gaan iemand gaan mis sit. Is daai verlede van ons, manne, weet jy wat? Paulus sê, ek vergeet die dinge wat agter is. En ek strek my uit. Die dinge wat voor is. Daai roeping wat Jesus my het, dis waarna ek is. Thank you for your testimony, brother.